What is going on? And welcome back to a special edition of K&A. I'm your host, the A portion of this, which is Amra Richardson. There's no Jeff Ketchum, but that was an easily replaceable K because we got Keenan Womack, our men's basketball writer, who is in the house, and we're going to talk hoops tonight. Let me start just being general, though. Keenan, how are you doing, man? It's a big night, big everything. What are you doing this afternoon to kind of get yourself ready for this evening's festivities?
Oh man, a lot of meditation, a lot of quiet thinking. I'm really excited, man. I think it's going to be really fun. First time they've been in the Sweet 16 in 15 seasons, and you couldn't have picked a more likable team to get there. I don't think,
Yeah, well, we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that team, the likability and all the phases of that. But before we get too far down the street, make sure you guys know that this show, the K&A show, is brought to you by our main man, Andy, from My Perfect Franchise. Look, if you are tired of working for the man, you are tired of working for someone else's dreams and someone else's visions and trying to make someone else profitable, you say to yourself, you know what? What about me? I want to start orangefans.com and I want to be able to have my own message boards. Like, how am I going to be able to do that? You call Andy. He may not have orangefans.com, but we have other franchises that you can get into and help you out. So hit our main man up, Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. Man, it's about that time, especially for you older people like me. I gotta start thinking about what I'm gonna do the rest of my life. So I may hit up Andy, hit up after the show. And if you guys don't see me in a month, thank you, Andy. But anyway, that being said, Keenan, we're gonna talk hoops today because obviously the game's tonight. I kind of want to get before we get on the Texas team. Give me your thoughts on the games that occurred yesterday, like the UCLA Gonzaga game. Obviously, that was a bar, but it was at one point. I just thought about turning the game off and doing something else in life. And then that happened, right? Yeah. So just give me some of your thoughts on yesterday's games.
Yeah, I think first of all, my Final Four is still intact. So
wow, you're that guy.
Yeah, I'm the guy who's going to brag about his show, about his bracket on show. That's me, dude. Yeah, I had Kansas State in my Final Four, and they looked like a Final Four team last night. I mean, that fake play where he looked like he was arguing with the coach, and then he just threw the alley-oop to Keontae Johnson, who dunked it backwards to give him a 2-point lead. I mean, that Michigan State game, I was like, there's no way the next game is going to top the Michigan State game, but it almost did. It was so exciting. The last two games yesterday were just why we love college basketball.
Florida Atlantic is somehow around. They knock off Tennessee. I imagine you haven't covered a lot of Florida Atlantic this year, but from what you've seen, this, explain the magic, behind this rise. Is it Florida Atlantic, by the way? I thought I heard something correctly. It was a team that wasn't even supposed to be in a tournament when it was or something like that, but maybe I heard that wrong. Maybe that's another team, but just give me your general. I don't need you to give me specifics, but your general impressions on Florida Atlantic.
I think you're mixing it up because Florida Atlantic only lost 3 games.
No. I'm mixing it up with the team that had that huge upset on the first weekend.
Fairleigh Dickinson.
Fairleigh Dickinson was the program that wasn't supposed to be in there technically.
Yeah, no, Florida Atlantic plays in the AAC, and the AAC is a pretty good basketball conference, to be honest. You got Memphis, you got U of H, you got SMU is good sometimes. Florida Atlantic was good this year. There's a lot of good teams in those mid-major conferences. It's pretty fun to watch those teams. And then you get a team like Tennessee, who's elite defensively, but they don't have not a lot of offense. I mean, I'm sure you remember watching the Rick Barnes teams at Texas to an extent where the offense kind of falls apart. But that's kind of what happened to them yesterday. I mean, Florida Atlantic just outscored them, really. I mean, Tennessee played good defense, held them to 63, but they only scored 55. It's hard to win a game when you score less than 60 points.
One more thing, but back to Kansas State, one more thing before we go start talking about Texas. Kansas State and Texas had a crazy, crazy game this season. I think both teams scored over 100 in that no defense kind of game. Is that game one of the games that kind of gave you some confidence as far as Kansas State? Was that the game for you, or was it just a body of work as far as your confidence in Kansas State?
Yeah, body of work. I think Jerome Tang is an excellent coach as well. The new coach over there, who was an assistant at Baylor for almost 20 years, or 20 years exactly, something like that. I think he's a big reason why. But they have two dudes who are top 15 players in the country, and Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel. And Marquise Noel had 19 assists yesterday,
Mm.
which
That's
is
pretty.
pretty
Well,
good if you ask me.
what's impressive as the assist is actually that there were 19 made buckets off of his passes as well.
Yeah.
That's also impressive as
It
well.
is impressive. Yeah. I mean, Kansas State just looked good. They're the only team to beat Texas on its home floor this year. So I think that gave me a lot of confidence in them. I mean, Texas did beat them in Manhattan, but I think winning at Texas is as impressive as a win as you're going to get in college basketball.
Yeah, no, I totally would agree with that. All right, so look, obviously Texas is playing Xavier. I'm assuming that maybe you've done some interviews with guys, this week. What are some of the things that you've kind of been able to gather, whether it's through Rodney Terry, whether it's through some of the players that have been made available? Like what's been the vibe and what have you been hearing and what have the guys kind of been talking about leading into the game?
Yeah, so they did sort of an open locker room deal on Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember. But yeah, they had the 7 or 8 players, and the thing that really stuck out to me is they're not done yet. They're not satisfied with this. They are hungry for more. They have designs on cutting down the nets, and I think that's possible with this team. Obviously, it's going to be really hard. You got to win 4 more games, but I think this team is super focused and I think they're super appreciative, but they're not done yet. I think they really want more. They want that Final Four. They want that national title.
So how has it? I'm guessing has it come up this week? And I don't want we'll put the Rodney Terry conversation, the bigger picture conversation. We'll put that off for a
Sure.
little bit later.
Yeah.
But have they talked about is it a distraction? With that the with not knowing where he's at, has that been fuel? Has that been a motivator for these players to say, I want to do this for Rodney Terry? Are they saying to this point, like, what more do we have to do? Like, what's kind of being said, amongst the guys?
Yeah, I can tell you they all want him to be the head coach next year. Every single one of those guys does. And you could see it when they won the Big 12 championship. I mean, they were going crazy. They were jumping around with him after their win to get them into the Sweet 16. The locker room, they were going crazy. They were salsa dancing. They were pouring water on each other. So I think that they are playing for him because they probably think it's like for his job. Whether that's true or not, I don't have eyes on the inside of Chris Del Conte's brain, so I can't really speculate on what he's thinking. But I mean, at this point, Rodney Terry has put together a hell of a resume.
Yeah, I mean, and again, let's just have the conversation now, as it relates to Rodney, and then we'll go back into get your breakdown
Sure.
of the Xavier game, tonight. In your opinion, and I know, I don't want to get caught up in the semantics of like deserve or earned or whatever the question is, but just in your opinion, you saw this team with Chris Beard, you've seen in this team with Rodney Terry. The basic question is at this moment, do you think he's the guy for the job?
I do. Yeah, I do at this point. I was really impressed all year. I think that winning that Sweet 16 game, I mean that round of 32 game, getting them further than they've been in 15 years. I think that kind of sealed the deal for me at least. But I understand why people would be maybe hesitant because he had some years at UTEP and at Fresno State. And he wasn't like elite there, but he had some good teams. He's a good recruiter. He got Bryson Williams to UTEP. I mean, the Xavier's star guard, Sully Baum, played for Rodney Terry at UTEP like 3 years ago. So pretty interesting connection between those two guys, having been on the same team. But yeah, I think at this point he's earned it. But like Ketch said, I don't know that I'd announce anything yet. I think I'd just let it play out before announcing it.
Did I hear correctly? Where you didn't Penn State after the game? I don't know if you went through all their quotes or anything, but I thought I heard something that Penn State had said, like they saw certain things from Texas, and it did a lot of things that were a little bit disruptive. Maybe a couple of things they hadn't seen,
Mhm.
previously. I'm wondering if you could clarify, to me what maybe the third person talk and chatter was, and doesn't that also speak to coaching, because at the end of the day, Chris Beard hasn't coached his team since December.
Right.
So this guy's been doing it. So can you clarify in the tournament what was Penn State saying after the game? And I just kind of want to see if I can connect the dots here.
Yeah, I think probably what they were discussing is the defense that Texas runs is called the no middle, and it's like very popular in the Big 12. And
Mhm.
basically, the point of it is to not allow dribble penetration into the lane. So you do a thing called icing ball screens, which is where you go parallel with the sideline on a ball screen, as opposed to guarding it from back to the baseline. You go back to the sideline, right? So you're trying
Mhm.
to funnel them into the corners to create like bad ball movement to where they're not getting anywhere, or they dribble into the corner and they have nowhere to go and you can turn them over. So, I think that that's probably what they were discussing. I mean, that's a super common defense in the Big 12, but it's not that common outside of the Big 12. So that's probably what they were talking about if I had to guess.
Gotcha. We'll see what happens. Uh, Dylan Disu. I mean,
Yeah,
give me
my
your
guy.
thought. Okay, well, if he's your guy, then you should have plenty to say. Give me your thoughts on Dylan and his performance. I mean, obviously in the last game, I mean, it's he put on that Superman role
Right.
and carried the team on his back. But give me just your breakdown of not only what you've seen from Dylan this season, but then what you've seen from him in postseason as well.
Sure, yeah. So Dylan really started tearing it up in the Big 12 title. He had some good games at the end of the season, but he really came along in the Big 12 tournament, which he won most outstanding player in the Big 12 tournament. And then he comes into the NCAA tournament and just starts balling out. He already made the all first round, second round team. He's on the all first round, second round team that I saw drop yesterday, which is impressive because he was averaging like 6 points a game this year. So 6 points and like 5 rebounds, something like that. And now he's at like in his last few games, he's been averaging like 16 and 9. So it's like it's kind of like adding a new player at the NBA trade deadline,
Mhm,
like just
mhm.
adding a superstar to a good team already. I mean, that's what it feels like with him. I don't know that he'll be able to do what he did against Penn State because Penn State had like no inside presence at all, really. And Xavier has a really good center who's in his 60th year, so he knows how to use his body. He's a very intelligent player. Knows how to block shots without fouling, that kind of thing. So it'll be
Mhm.
interesting to see him go up against that. But man, he could not be denied against Penn State. It's pretty awesome to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely impressive, and I mean, and what he's been able to do. I mean, and again, as Coach Terry talked about what he's done and Dylan has done in the postseason, as that come up in conversation, or at least after the game, because these are the moments when you need guys to kind of stand up and your stars to stand up, and you have some of the guys that the go-to guy, your Marcus Carrs of the world, so on and so forth. But that was a game where what's so interesting and fascinating about that last game for a team that usually had been pretty decent from a three-point shooting perspective. Texas was horrible. I mean, they were absolutely horrible as far as shooters were concerned, but they still were able to pull out that victory.
Yeah, I think what's important to take away from all that is this team can win in different ways, right?
Mhm.
They can win in a shootout if they have to. That's not what they want to do, but they can win those games, but they can win a grind it out, type game like the team last year. That was just grinded out to the extreme. I don't know if you remember watching last year's team versus this year's. It's a much different experience to watch this year's team that has like a true point guard instead of trying to make Marcus Carr run the point. He's much better as a two, I think. Even his assists went up when he moved to the two guard spot. So he still dribbles a lot, but like Hunter's a point guard on the floor when Hunter's on the floor. It gives Carr some rest, which I think is important. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think this team is just they trust Terry. Like you can tell they trust him, which is so important because they probably had their ability to trust a coach was probably damaged with the whole situation that happened in December. Like that probably messed with their heads a little bit. They're like, am I in the right place? Should I be playing here? And Rodney Terry came along and was just like, yeah, like you should be. I'm here to lead you guys. It's just really impressive from like a man, like a standpoint of like almost personalities that nothing really blew up in their face. They've all been so like gracious and humble, and they don't have egos, and it's really easy to like them, but it also makes them play better because it doesn't have to be one guy scoring all the points.
All right, take us behind the scenes. There's guys who have not watched Xavier all year long. You had a breakdown of Xavier from an offensive standpoint, defensive standpoint, post play, all that kind of stuff. So, for the Texas fans who are familiar with their program, not that familiar with Xavier, let them know. Take us behind the scenes, take us behind the curtain, and tell us all about Xavier.
Yeah, for sure. They have 3 stars, so the 3 Musketeers.
Clever. Is it? I don't know.
So basically, they have a really good backcourt with Sully Baum, and then I really hope I'm pronouncing his name right. It's very close if I'm not. And then Colby Jones, who is a first-round NBA draft talent. He's a junior guard. Averages like 15 a game, and combined they average like as a team they're scoring in the 80s in points. So they score a ton of points. They have Jack Nunge, who's their center, who's a 60-year college player. So he knows how to play the game. I mean, that experience is super valuable, especially at a spot like that, because like I said about Penn State, they didn't really have any bigs. They weren't playing bigs at all. So Dylan had no trouble scoring. Jack Nunge is 6'11", and he's pretty nimble, and he's a good shot blocker. So he actually saved their season on a blocked shot against Kennesaw State in the first round, which they almost lost to that team because Kennesaw was so athletic. But I think this Texas team is pretty athletic too. So I think that could pose a problem for Xavier. They are the 3rd team in a row that's in the top 11 in the country in 3-point shooting percentage. But if you look at the first 2 games, Colgate was number 1 in the country. They were shooting 41% from 3, and they ended up shooting 3 for 15 against Texas. And then Penn State, sorry. They were number 11 in the country in 3-point shooting percentage. Texas held them to 8 for 28. And now Xavier is number 5 in 3-point percentage. So we'll see if their perimeter defense can hang with these guys. I think it can. And I don't think that Xavier has seen a perimeter defense like this.
Then that's the offensive standpoint of it. What can you tell me from a defensive breakdown of Xavier? Obviously, they're going to have to, contend with Texas. Look, as you mentioned, is high scoring. So what does Xavier bring from a defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, so they're big on trying to push the pace of transition. So they're trying to look for rip and runs, which is you grab the rebound and immediately push the pace, right? So they're trying to do that all game. So they're trying to turn you over. They average, I think, like they force like 12 or 13 turnovers a game, something like that, which is like decent. It's not amazing. Their defensive stats are like not super impressive but they play at a super high pace. So more possessions is going to equal more points for both teams, right? So you kind of see that. I mean, it's like, teams that run a slower pace are going to have better defensive numbers if you don't adjust for them. That's what KenPom does, it adjusts for pace. And that's how they rank it. So I think defensively, they're going to try to probably trap on the ball screen, I would think, try to turn Texas over as much as possible so they can rip and run. But this Texas offense it's hard to guard because you can't just plan to take out one guy. It's not like Penn State where it's like, okay, you lock up, their star player and you'll probably win. Jalen Pickett had 11 points on like 5 for 13 or something like that. So they locked him up, and that dude's an All-American. And so we'll see what they can do because Xavier has 2 really good guards that I mentioned earlier. Both of those guys are awesome. They both average more than 15 points a game. So it's not going to be as easy but it's not going to be as easy to lock Texas up because there's so many different guys who can contribute.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen 2 things in the comment that has kind of stood out. Blake Bryant had said 70 is the magic number. If we hold them below that, then we win. Do you think that's kind of a fair?
Yeah.
If below 70 for what they're doing, that's probably automatic at that point.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's automatic, but against Xavier's defense is statistically not that impressive. But again, it has
Mhm.
to do with pace. But
Yeah.
they're going to be able to score against this team, and
Mhm.
obviously they can't go 1 for 13 for three, or they're going to lose. You can't.
Sure.
You can't. I mean, you get one of those a tournament. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you get one
exactly.
bad shooting night a tournament, or you're going to
Mhm.
lose in the next round. So they're going to have to shoot better from three. But I think it was kind of important that they were able to win without hitting a bunch of threes because they were raining threes against Colgate. So I think it probably actually, ironically enough, gave them confidence that they won without shooting well. Like, oh, we
Mhm.
can win these games even if we're not nailing threes. But it's a lot easier to win if you don't shoot 1 for 13.
And then James actually made out a really good point. He talked about not coming out flat.
Yeah.
That seems to be something that has happened with this team. It seemed like, once this team gets started and heated, like they're doing pretty good. But to your point, when you start talking about the tournament, I know the swings and things to that effect, but how important is it for Texas to really get off to a fast start and a faster start than sometimes we've seen this year?
Yeah, if I'm Texas, I don't want to start off in a hole against an offensive team that's this good because
Mhm.
if you start off in a hole, they can just stay hot. They can just hit threes. I mean, again, we'll see what the perimeter defense for Texas does to their 3-point shooting numbers because they have multiple guys who can hit from outside. But yeah, if they come out flat and they go down 15 points, like I don't like their odds of coming back from that. I think
Mhm.
they need to, if say they're losing at the half, it can't be by more than 5 or 6. I don't think. I think that would be a really bad omen for them to win the game.
Let me ask you a couple more, Keenan, before I let you get out of here.
Sure.
Give me some key matchups. Like what am I watching? When we're watching this game, and just give me your key matchups, your Keenan's keys at this moment.
Sure. Yeah. I think the most intriguing one for me is going to be Dylan Disu versus Jack Nunge,
Okay.
because Dylan Disu was so dominant in that last game. But again, like I said, Penn State didn't really play their bigs. They had Jalen Pickett out there. Then they were surrounding him just with shooters and other guards, guys who could hit threes. So you can run they're running like a 5 out. So like when you would drive, you can kick out for the three. So that was sort of what their strategy was.
Mhm.
But I would look for Jack Nunge versus Dylan Disu in the post. And
Okay.
then Timmy Allen, who did a great job defensively on Jalen Pickett last round. I assume they'll put him on Colby Jones, who's the NBA prospect that's on Xavier's team, who's probably going to be in the 20s of the NBA draft, something like that. And then Sully Baum versus Tyrese Hunter and Serge Jabari Rice, whoever's on him at the time, is going to be
Mhm.
really interesting too. And I think those matchups kind of go both ways. It should be interesting.
Paxton asked, does Xavier play zone defense? You know how they
I
line up
mean,
on defense?
not all the time. Like no team really does it all the time, except for like Syracuse. But it's like they go back and forth. I think that it depends on who they're playing against too. Like the zone works better against different things versus versus man to man in certain situations. But I mean, they'll probably play a mix of it.
I got two more questions for you. All right.
Yeah.
If I had to give the Keenan's keys, right? The three keys for Texas to pull off the victory. I know you've said a lot, and that so we can pull it
Yeah.
all kind of tightly back together. If you had to give me three keys for Texas winning tonight, what will they be?
Okay. Like somebody said, hold them under 70. I
Mm-hmm.
think if you do that, you probably win. Keep them under 35% from three, which relates to the score.
Mm-hmm.
And then put it in the paint early, often. Try to get Jack Nunge in foul trouble. And somebody just said this, but I was about to say it. Don't turn it over. Because turning it over against Xavier equals points because they love to rip and run. They love to push the pace. So if you turn it over against them, they're going to score on the other end. So you have to take care of the ball. Thanks, Paxton, for the assist on that.
Paxton's a good dude. He's always he's very active as is everybody who's in this community,
Yeah,
usually in the chat.
the
So
crew.
yeah, they're good. They're consistent and they're very knowledgeable. So it always makes for kind of a fun show. All right. So finally, go ahead, give us your prediction. Go ahead and put yourself out there right now. Texas, Xavier, your score prediction is what and why? So that's the key. You got to give me the what and the why.
I think Texas wins and goes to the Elite Eight for the first time in 15 years. And I think the score will be 72-69. And because I had 82-79 initially, and then I read about it more, and I was like, it'll probably be lower scoring than that if Texas wins. So I'm thinking 72-69 because I think Texas is going to be able to shut down their perimeter offense a little bit. I think they're going to make it really hard to hit threes. I think they're going to make it really hard on those guards and put a lot of pressure on them. And I think they're going to play denial with Jack Nunge. I don't think they're going to let him get the ball very easily. I don't think they're going to have easy post touches for him at all. I think their defense is just going to win this game for them. I think Xavier's going to be surprised how good they are on defense.
All right. And who are they playing on the other side? They got Houston and Miami on the other side.
Miami. And I got a hot take on that. I think Miami wins that game.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would probably be the only Final Four team I would have left potentially. But go ahead. Why do you think Miami?
Because Miami has 3 amazing guards, and then they have an awesome dude in the post, in Norchad Omier. Mm-hmm. That dude's awesome. People thought he was going to be injured for the tournament. He's back. He's been playing really well. And then they have Isaiah Wong and Nigel Pack. Nigel Pack, former Kansas State guard, actually. But I just think they have the firepower to hang with U of H. I'm not saying they definitely will, but I think they have a very good chance of pulling it off.
All right, Keenan. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you filling in for
Sure.
Kay. I'm glad we were able to finally catch up and everything like that. Keenan, for those who are you're kind of new-ish at Orangebloods, but not new, brand new. But for those who need to follow you on Twitter to keep up with all your updates throughout the game tonight, so they know what's going on, how do they find you on Twitter?
You see my name down there? It's just you take the space out, and that's my Twitter handle at Keenan Woolman.
Yeah, see, I made mine as simple as well. So.
Yeah, it's easier to remember, so don't forget my name. Because I forget my name.
Perfectly. All right, well, I appreciate you. Remember, last time, guys, myperfectfranchise.net. If you are looking to start your own business, maybe you want to go in business with Keenan, and guys got some basketball franchises or something like that. I know he's not a business advice guy. He's a franchise guy. There's franchises that are out there for you. So if you're looking for it, thinking about it, some other people, you guys are pull your money together and you want to make this damn thing work for you in 2023, hit your main man up, Andy, at myperfectfranchise.net. So for my main man, Keenan, for Jeff Ketchum isn't here, and Blake, who's always doing a fantastic job behind the scenes. Let's see and hope that there's a Texas victory, and hopefully maybe by this weekend we'll have another video talking about Texas going to the Final Four. That would be pretty exciting.
That'd be pretty fun, wouldn't it?
So we'll stay tuned. We'll see what happens tonight and then, of course, over the weekend. So until then, you guys take care. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.